looks like it. Let's call this meeting to begin this meeting at 4:12. Can you call the roll, please?
Chair Kim Fitzgerald,
Here.
Kirsten Collins,
Present.
Michael Schilling,
Here.
David Shane.
And he's not excused, so we'll just consider that an absence.
Oh, me. The approval, anybody approve the January 17th meeting minutes? Second. Okay, and it looks like,
So there's a motion and a second, so we have to vote.
oh, okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 All right, moving along, we have a public works project update.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. So I met with Kim a few weeks ago, and we talked about what we would bring to the committee today. And I suggested I come and update you on our projects for 2023, at least the major projects. And Kim said that since our committee was reformed and new, that it might be helpful to do a quick overview of the Public Works Department, what it is and what it does. So I'll try to move through this as rapidly as possible, but make sure we all get the gist of things. So Public Works Department overview, we'll start with that and then do the projects afterwards. So basically, the Public Works Department is responsible for the construction, maintenance, operation, and improvement of the city's infrastructure for health, safety, and all that good stuff. So we are divided into eight different divisions, and they are water intake, treatment, and distribution. And there's a crew in our department that focuses on those areas. We also have a crew that looks after our wastewater and stormwater collection and our street maintenance. We actually have a contract with Jacobs Engineering for our wastewater treatment. Parks maintenance, we have a parks crew. Galaxy Aquatic Center, we have a lot of staff for that, most of them part-time. Facilities maintenance, fleet services, and administrative and engineering services. So I'm going to go quickly through each one of these. I'll give you just kind of the overview of what these departments do, what they're responsible for. So we're going to start with water intake, treatment, and distribution. This division is responsible for management of our Mercer Reservoir, our treatment plant, which has a 10.5 million gallon a day capacity, pre-finished water reservoirs, 4 pump stations, about 65 miles of distribution lines. So the next division is streets, sewer, and stormwater. We've grouped those all together, and we have one crew that focuses on all of these. As far as streets go, they're responsible for just over 63 miles of streets, 5 bridges, and about 2,000 signs. They're in charge of street sweeping, curb painting, street signage, pothole filling and crack sealing, weed spraying and tree trimming as it bears on streets, snow plowing and de-icing. On the sewer collection side, we have about 71 miles of collection lines and 2 lift stations. Crew takes care of line construction, repair, inspection, and line cleaning, maintenance of our River Drive and Bridlewood sanitary lift stations. Stormwater, about 50 miles of collection lines for storm. The crew is responsible for the catch basins and our rain gardens, storm line clearing and repair. Then moving on to our wastewater treatment, which is a division, but actually under contract to Jacobs Engineering. So they take care of all of that for us, make sure that we meet all of the regulatory compliance requirements for the facility and generally keep our plant up. Our plant has a maximum processing capacity of 12.5 million gallons a day, but we run an average of 2.6 million gallons a day. So a lot of capacity there. A lot of that can be filled up quickly in a big weather event, and often is. So going on to parks maintenance, we have 12 parks. totaling about 108 acres and about 3 miles of improved trails. In our aquatic center, some of you probably already know this, we have a 6-lane lap pool, a warm therapy pool, a hot spa, multi-use pool, wading pool, a lazy river, and a multi-use meeting room. Facilities maintenance. Facility folks are responsible for the maintenance and repair of 11 buildings and properties. And we have our fleet services, which serves all the city's fleet needs, plus 10 other local governments under local intergovernmental agreements. And they support all total 100 plus vehicles and other units of equipment like heavy equipment and other apparatus. So administrative and engineering services, we manage the city infrastructure projects, oversee private infrastructure development, review and approve subdivision plans as far as our part of the world goes, prepare and submit regulatory compliance reports to state agencies, like our TMDL and some chemical reports and reports of that nature. And then we're responsible for departmental administrative support. And so that's our flow chart there. All total, we have 29 full-time employees, 27 part-time employees, and as I said earlier, most of our part-time folks work for the Aquatic Center. So let's go on to the second half of my presentation. Our 2023 projects, I think I've got 8 to show you. Street rehab program, phases 2 and 3, raw water capacity expansion, our water storage rights application process, Lock Rail Node sewer design project, Clay Street Reservoir repair project, Clay Street waterline project, phase 1, Godsey Road bridge repair project, North Fork Ash Creek drainage study, and our 2023 ADA ramp construction project. We're doing all that this year, we hope. So going on to street rehab program phase 2. This is a phase that began last fall. The contractor got rained out because of oncoming winter. And so there's a portion of that project that's going to happen this spring. So the scope of the work basically is 2.5-inch grind and asphalt overlay on about 30 street sections. The notable ones, the ones that most of us have driven on or drive on, the West Ellendale Avenue and Hillcrest Drive to the west. Actually, West Ellendale Avenue is to the city limits, not Hillcrest. That's an error. Sorry about that. So anyway, the total project, or phase 2, is 7 miles of streets. As I mentioned, we have some streets to finish up. Those are primarily the streets in the south Kingsborough, with a few other streets that are north of Ellendale and west of Hillcrest, including a section of Alameda Street, a section of Brentwood Avenue, and all of Sunny Drive. And that will complete phase 2, which all total, our estimate, that's going to come in at about $3.2 million. It's split between our fund exchange allotment, which is our federal gas tax that we get from the state of Oregon. About $175,000 will chip in for this phase, and then about $3 million of our rehab loan that the council approved. Gosh, I guess it was almost 2 years ago now. So just some quick before and afters of streets that we've already addressed in phase 2. Clay Street west of Fairview Avenue, before and after. South Church Street, before and after. And then going on to phase 3, which we have out to bid right now. Again, it's a 2.5-inch grind and asphalt overlay. This time 6 street sections that include sections of Birch, Ellis, Maple, and Stump Streets, all of Oregon Avenue and Gerlinger Place. It totals about 1.1 miles of streets. When you add that to the 7 on phase 2 and the 3 to phase 1, by the time we're done with phase 3, we're going to be a little over 11 miles of streets of our network, which is, I think, about 63 miles of streets. So a pretty good chunk of our street section in just a little over a year. So our bid process for phase 3, that went out to bid a week or two ago. We're having a bid opening on the 9th of March, and we want to award that contract in March. And we're estimating our construction window will be July to November. The contract will actually specify that they can't start for July, because it will be funded under the new budget for the new fiscal year. So we estimate that project at just a little under $450,000, and that funding is split, as you see there, $240 from our federal gas tax, and the street loan at $206. Street loan is just about exhausted after our first 3 phases, which is as to our original plan. Moving on, stop me if you want to ask any questions. Moving on to our raw water capacity expansion up at the Mercer Complex. The step that we're in now with this process is our water storage rights application process. We now have water storage rights of, I think, about 15 acre feet. Our reservoir is about 12. If we stay with the plan we have now for the new facility, it's close to, I think it's 50 acre feet, so 49 acre feet. So 4 times of what we have now. We have to have a storage right, a water right that's for storage to be able to do that. So before we get into any heavy design, we want to make sure we have the right to store the water in it. So the scope is to expand, here it is, expand our storage water rights from 1,250 acre feet to 5,000 acre feet. Jacobs Engineering and city staff are currently collaborating together to develop that water rights application. It will be submitted to Oregon Water Resources Department, we hope in April. It will take the department a long time to review this, probably about this time next year. We hope to finally get some word back on that. Meanwhile, we're working on some fish passage issues related to the Mercer Complex, and hopefully we'll have that out of the way before we get into the heavy design of the facility itself. So moving on to the Lockreal Node Sewer Design Project. This is to get sewer to the node, so to design that system. We're preparing a RFQ, which we've slated for that to be accomplished in this coming month. It's in the works right now. We want to have that solicitation out during the month of April, hopefully a contract award in early May. We estimate the engineer's portion of this window for that project is approximately June to December of this year. Moving on to our Clay Street Reservoir leak repair and cover replacement project. There you see the overview of our reservoir complex off of Clay Street. The 2 square reservoirs are the ones in question here. The one to the south, or to the bottom part of the screen, the square one, has a significant leak in it. So the plan is to take off the 2 floating covers on both of those and ultimately replace those, but then also go in and fix all of the cracks and leaks in the cells, those 2 cells. So bid process, Jacobs is working on that. We believe they're going to be ready to go out in March with that. There we go. Contract award in April. Construction window September to November. We have to do that at low water usage. We can't do it in the summer because we're going to be taking those cells offline. So we look for a time where we have the demand is not as great. So funding is a $2.2 million Special Public Works Fund loan, which we had approved last year from Business Oregon, which we'll have to pay off over time, of course. So related to the reservoir project is our distribution line that comes out of the reservoir, Clay Street Water Line Replacement Phase 1. This is a line that was installed approximately in 1947, so it's quite old. A lot of the valves do not function as we need them to function. So it's time for replacement. We're taking this in two chunks because it's a significant project. Phase one runs from the facility, which you see on the left there, out to Fairview Avenue. So let's look at the particulars. We're going to be replacing that line, which is a 16-inch transmission line. Final designs and specifications, again from Jacobs, is expected in March. Our utility crews are going to build this in-house, so that'll be fun. Construction window is April to October. Phase two, again, is from Fairview, or phase two will be Fairview to Jefferson, and we're anticipating that for the following year, 2024. We currently have an application out for Public Works revolving loan fund funding of phase two, because it's quite more a bit more involved. We'll want to have a contractor do that project. We were notified a week ago that we actually were awarded this funding, and in fact that OHA, who reviews these for Business Oregon, had determined that we are a priority project because this water distribution line serves the south part of town, which includes our hospital and several of our schools. So we will get priority funding for this, which there are so many projects that's important, because you can get approved and then wait for a very long time for the funding. So this should put us closer up to the front of the line. So moving on to the Godsey Bridge repair project, I think you folks are aware that we recently were required to post this bridge for a 5-ton limit. We have determined that there are two bents, which they are the cross members that go across the pilings or the piers, that need to be replaced on either side of the stream, and along with two of the pilings need to be replaced as well. I'm told by an engineer at ODOT Bridge that if we perform this project, at the very least, we will have our limit raised, but there is a very good possibility we could have the entire limit taken off. So understanding that funding for the wholesale replacement of this bridge is probably some years off, unfortunately, we believe it's worth the money to go ahead and get this repaired. Project is estimated at just a little under $100,000 for that repair. So on to the particulars. If I can get the mouse to respond. There we go. So as I said, we want to replace the north and south bents and two piers. Plans and specifications. That's our next project up to get finalized into our bid package and then out to bid, which we'll be doing here in just a week or two. We're anticipating contract award, if all goes well with that bid, for April. Construction window is May to October. And we're estimating that at a $95,000 expense. Sorry, my mouse is not being very responsive. Next item is the North Fork Ash Creek Drainage Study, which was the part of our stormwater master plan that was completed in 2015. And I discovered a year and a half ago that this was something that the city never followed up on. So we are doing this now because it determines a lot of the projects we need to do. Flooding issues in the south part of town around the North Fork Ash Creek. So we have Jacobs Engineering, who did our master plan, working on this. Maybe the battery's going dead. Oh, there we go. So the scope is to study the North Fork Ash Creek drainage area and determine flood condition mitigation improvements per the stormwater master plan. So we're looking at a completion of this study and then a presentation of recommendations. I said here expected in March and April. Since then, had a discussion with the Jacobs folks, and it looks like maybe May or June at this point. So that's going to clarify for us projects we need to get into the CIP and to begin to fund so we can address those flooding issues in that part of town. So as I say here, recommendations will inform decisions on future project development. And finally, our 2023 ADA ramp construction project. We're trying to do ADA ramps every year. So far, I think last couple of years, we've done 75 or 80 ramps. This project will be focusing on Hayter Street, south of Washington. The reason it's focusing on that is, unlike most of town, Hayter Street, that section of Hayter Street, has 16 curb faces that don't have ramps at all at corners. So rather than go ahead and replace some ramps that already exist, which we do need to do, we're opting to first address those corners that don't have ramps at all, so we have an improving accessibility situation in town. So this says 16 ramps. Actually, as we continue to scope that out, we're probably looking at 20. And that project is going to be bid out.
You can also hit the spacebar button on the keypad.
Yeah. There we go. Thank you, Brian. So actually, this is going to bid out tomorrow. So, and then that'll go into March. I don't remember the exact, Tom, the exact award date of that?
Yeah.
It's later in March. Anyway, hope to get that awarded before the month is out. And then our construction window is July to October for that project. Estimated cost $170,000, funded through the street fund. So questions?
Kirsten.
You talked about the Godsey Bridge repair and why we can't replace. Can you talk about Godsey Road?
Yeah, it's kind of, as far as funding the bridge and the road, those kind of go together. There was a funding package put together some years ago that by the time the current crew here was able to focus and address that, costs had skyrocketed. So we don't have the funding to do it. We've put in for a congressionally direct funded grant, which we were not successful in. At this point, we know for a fact that we will be invited. We don't have to go to them, but ODOT will invite us into the next step process, which is for 2027 to 2030. They're going to invite us because they're prioritizing bridge projects. We will present the entire project as the bridge and the street, and hopefully we will be successful in getting the entire project into the STIP. At this point, it doesn't appear, and we've not been able to identify other funding sources for that project. It's probably about an $8 or $9 million project by the time we completely rebuild and resurface that street with. It's a full rebuild. It's the street, sidewalks, storm drainage, bike lanes, lighting, the whole 9 yards, new bridge, railroad crossing, which is actually part of the project, but will be handled separately by the railroad by law. So quite a big undertaking, and we're working hard to try to get it funded.
Can the road wait till 2027?
Excuse me?
Can that road wait till 2027?
That is a very good question, and I pondered that a
Do
lot.
you not have your crystal ball for this meeting?
No, it's one of those things that a public works director wakes up at night and goes, what are we going to do about that?
Mhm.
Because it's not in good shape. So I'm hopeful that maybe we'll identify some sort of other funding before 2027. At this point, though, I just don't know.
And one last question, have we looked into, I think we have, looked into safe route to school, safe passage to school, safe?
Yeah, the safe routes to school.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes, we have. We're actually, we applied for safe routes to school for the intersection at Levens and Ellendale, and we were not successful with that application. However, we do believe that we have an excellent application prospect for Ash Street around the schools. If you drive Ash Street from its east terminus at the elementary school and head west all the way to Main Street, you will count, surprisingly, many corners that have no ADA ramps. So that's our next ADA ramp program. I'm hoping to get it funded by Safe Routes to School. I think it's a dead ringer for Safe Routes to School because of the proximity of the schools.
But Godsey is not.
And so I would, that's your specific question. I think that Godsey would be a candidate for Safe Routes to Schools because there are not sidewalks along that route getting up to Whitworth and the high school. Whitworth is a better candidate because they like funding elementary school projects versus high school projects, just because of, kids are greater to walk when they're younger. So yes, I think that's a candidate. That would be a part of an overall funding package. It couldn't be, Safe Routes wouldn't pay for the entire project, the street paving and the bridge and the rail. They would pay for the sidewalks in particular. And so I think that that's certainly some funding that we could leverage. And we are coupling together other ideas right now. The South Dallas Urban Renewal District area included Godsey Road intentionally, the full width of Godsey Road and length, because we see that as a possible funding source to improve that roadway. I wouldn't put the full burden on the Urban Renewal District to pay for that, but again, that could be some of that gap funding needed. But we will beat on every door. When we see grant opportunities available, we go in. The challenge that we're having right now with grants is it's a big project, and not a lot of grant agencies have, $7 million, $8 million to put towards just one project, unless it's like a interstate, I-5 type project. And so we need to cobble together, probably 3 or 4 different funding sources to be able to pay for that project. And so I think urban renewal will be a piece of that. Safe Routes to School could be a piece of it. The STIP might only be a piece of it. I think the STIP could fund the whole project, but again, you have to wait those many years to get there. We want to do this project tomorrow. Or yesterday even, but it's just a matter of getting that funding. And so we're trying to be proactive in making sure we know we will have some funding, especially through urban renewal. And then what else can we add on to that to make this work? It's an important project for our community.
Absolutely.
Anyone else? Gary, I just had a question when you were talking about the dam.
About the what?
The dam.
Yes,
project.
yes.
And you said that we need to find out if we have or can obtain the rights. What if we don't know that, and what if we can't obtain those rights to expand?
Well, it's not for certain, but I believe we will.
Okay.
I mean, as a municipality, obviously we carry a lot of weight with the state that we need to have water for our community. So.
Okay, but there were
But it
other
is a process.
options too, in case something like that fell through. We had other options too, didn't we? The other
So one of
basins and stuff.
the obvious other options that's being worked through right now would be an intertie between the cities of Monmouth, Independence, and Dallas. There are some water rights that the Polk County has that they purchased from. They were existing water rights in the Willamette River. They purchased from the city of Adair Village. Some of those are more senior, and some are pretty junior rights. Meaning in the summertime when the demand is the highest, you have a junior right, you're not going to get that water, right? But there's that opportunity that's there. Dallas has chosen not to participate in an intertie between those cities today because we're the most expensive.
They touch each other with their water systems. That'd be more expensive for us to do that. So they're planning to, take advantage of those water rights on the Willamette River. So right now they don't take the Willamette water river; they take groundwater. So this would be, increased capacity for their systems that we could take advantage of if we had an intertie.
Yeah, because it just, the way it was phrased was, we don't, we have to see if we have it or can obtain it. So I was just curious about that wording.
I agree with Gary. I think it's more of making sure we just go through the process and we check all the boxes.
Okay.
I don't think there's going to be anything that will prevent us from getting that water right.
Okay,
It's just a matter of time.
sorry.
Anything
Okay.
else?
That's all from me.
Right.
Just quick clarification. Water right or storage right?
So it's a storage right. It's a right
Storage
to store the water.
Right, because we already have the water right.
Correct. Yeah, we have the right to use water.
And in fact, we have the right to use a much larger portion of that water.
Yeah, I think I don't know what our water right is on the McCrell Creek off the top of my head. I've been told that we can dry the creek as it currently runs through.
Yes, we can. I don't have that number off the top of my head, but yeah.
Yeah,
We have
So
plenty there.
We have a lot more right to be able to use the water and take out for our needs for the future, for the growth.
And so that's why you're fairly confident, is because we have the water right, we just don't have the storage right.
Correct. So
We do have the storage right, we just want to make it a bigger.
Bigger storage.
Yeah, so
Yes.
we need a larger storage, right, so we can hold more water, so that way when we can supply enough water going down the street, so we can pull more of it out with our existing water right that we have to use.
Okay, so is that it? Okay, then I'll adjourn the meeting at 4:44.
Okay, thank you.
No break, nothing, we're just going?
Whatever you want to do.
Okay. So we'll open the Public Safety Committee meeting at 4:43. First thing up, are there any corrections to the minutes from the meeting on August 22nd? That was a long time ago.
I move to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Call for a vote? Aye.
Aye.
Do I need to say call for a vote in a specific?
All those.
All those in favor of
Signify by
approving
aye.
the minutes as they are read,
We knew what you meant.
Yep.
Say aye.
say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
You did say aye too.
Oh. That's what I heard you say. Aye. Okay, so first up, we have, who is first? Tom, are you first? Oh, you're first, you're right.
And I'll rely on Chief Dickerson and Chief Simpson, if I start saying things that,
Just heard so.
yeah.
Just ain't right.
So, city staff are working on a few different projects when it comes to our public safety facilities. We know that there is need for improved facilities and new facilities, both in the fire and EMS service and also in our police department. And so, back in 2017, 2018, 2019, and even years before then, we've looked at, police station options, improvements to the fire station. In 2019, we kind of came to a head of those conversations with a shared joint facility. We had a public engagement process, community participation. I believe Councilman Chilling was the chair of that committee, and made a recommendation to move forward with that project. It's going to be a bonded capital project. The cost of that was roughly $20 million. And then COVID happened, and the council decided to not move forward with that project because of uncertainty in the financial world with that global pandemic. Okay, so that kind of got put on the shelf. Since then, with rising costs of construction and everything else, we've said, are there alternative options to that shared combined facility? We had, through the American Rescue Plan Act dollars, the council decided that, hey, we can do a second fire and EMS station, substation. So we went through that and decided to it's still years as far as our budget for that. So we're looking at those options as well. So I would say that everything is really still a viable on the table option, and we just have to decide where to move forward. In the meantime, the need's not getting any less for these facilities. It's just going worse. Would be how I'd say that. So, the shared facility is an option that's there. I would certainly say it's going to be more expensive today than it was 3 years ago. At $20 million, you're probably looking at a few $1 million to that project without making changes to really plan for that. There are, as I mentioned, the fire training facility. The council has decided to put money towards that from the American Rescue Plan Act dollars. We would build that on the land that we own off of James Howe Road. Since that meeting where the council said yes, that gave that the green light, we were approached by Southwest Polk Rural Protection Fire District to look at a shared facility with that agency. We received direction from staff and council to staff to look at other agencies as well, like Polk One. So we're working with them we received answers to questions back from Southwest Pulp. We're waiting to get the questions back from Pulp One. We're bringing those back to the council. Then you guys can decide where to move forward there. It's likely that we will do some sort of shared training facility, and I think what staff would guide you towards with either of the agencies is, what can we add that would enhance not only our training services and our training facilities, but that the other agencies already have. Right? So what can we have that they don't have here in Dallas? So that we still, all three of us, will have different components for training in their locations. And so I think there's regional benefit to that project, and we're looking forward to that. So but stay tuned on that. We'll have more information forthcoming probably in the next month and a half. Fire sleeping quarters. So we modified an office in the EMS building to be a sleeping quarters for our captains. We hired a new captain so that we could have 24-hour coverage of captains. We were having 12-hour shifts from captains. Now we have 3 of them, and so we have that coverage. And we provided assistant quarters for them for that purpose. But we need to be better than that. That's kind of a thrown together temporary solution. We are working with a local real estate agent to try to find either a house that can accommodate that. We've looked at and have easily crossed off at least 2 or 3 options. And so far that just didn't work from a livability standpoint. Location was great, but the condition was terrible. And so we were scratching this off. We are looking at other options, including an area where we could do a longer term station for fire and EMS on the north side of River Creek. So we're looking at that. We're hopeful to be able to find the right solution for that. That's still in the works. On the police side, I mentioned previously that this building, City Hall, is an opportunity for us to say, can this building be repurposed as a police station so that you would have an ability to, with Public Works going to their new facility down at Public Works shops and not having administrative staff and engineering staff in this building. There's really only a couple of departments left: city manager's office, finance, utility billing, finance, municipal court, and the economic and community development. And there's an opportunity, I think, for some work from home or shared workspaces. Looking at the one at the fiber building to be able to provide that shared workspace environment, and have this building be repurposed for that police station. We have completed the comprehensive building inspection on this building. We have a 75 or 100-page document reporting all the things that we can consider as part of that process. We're scheduling an environmental assessment to understand any asbestos or other issues that might be in the building. We know of some. We don't learn of all of them. And then we'll take those 2 reports, which will inform an RFP for a architect. By probably early to mid-April, so then we'll a contract by the end of June and have them start work on July
2023.
They will then look at this building and make sure that all of the needs can be met for the police station. We're closely with Chief Simpson and the police department to make that work. We'll also have to look at the fiber building for that shared workspace concept over there. See if that will work. And then the results of that architectural work. I hope that'll be about a 6-month process. So by the end of the calendar year, we'll kind of know, and have dollars and cents to those projects. And so they work from a commercial standpoint and have the dollars and cents that might be impacted forward with. Or if it's a very expensive proposition, the shared facility proposition rolls back up at the top. So but certainly by the end of the year, hopefully we'll have some good direction on where to move forward with that conversation for a new space for the police department. I think that's all on the public safety facility side. Did I say anything?
Can you talk about secure parking? Should this building, City Hall, be the path forward?
So, if this building is the path forward, and that gets up super specific, because that's again some work that the architect will do, but we would probably utilize some of the parking lot behind City Hall, which is it's a public parking lot. It's a lot where library patrons will go to park. We'll utilize the north side of that parking lot for the police department, which would be a fenced-in, gate to get vehicles in. For people that are on shifts, that's sort of like our on shift vehicles will park. So people coming out of the building, right to that fenced area and get out for calls. And then we look at the parking lot across the street, not the one on the corner, but the one kind of closer to the line of that building. It's a longer lot. We would fence off some of that parking lot area for officers when they're arriving or taking their shift. So that the proper person fits up there in the fenced area. So they don't have that. That's what they're. That's conceptually what we thought about, but we'll kind of put that on our architect also, so that there are opportunities. With less employees working here, that's what we hope we can do away some of these parking spaces, because that parking lot really is used for parking here.
Yes, Kim.
At the risk of sounding like I wasn't really paying attention, when you were talking about this being a shared facility, was that with the police and the fire?
So,
Like-
that's a good question. The shared facility concept, that really a lot of conversations took place before you were elected to city council. So that was over at the current fire station, and it's building on to that fire station, going further to the south and to the west of that building, for a shared police and fire department building.
Okay.
There. So we'd be doing a major expansion into that facility.
And could accommodations be made in this building for overnight accommodations for some of the fire personnel or no? But like in the restructuring?
If we were to renovate this building, we would just be looking at for a police department.
Okay.
And the only shared service in this building would probably be for this one.
And where would we be?
You would probably be down in the civic center space. A portion of whatever that would look like. It may not look the same.
You're gonna have to get better heating.
So, yeah, we would fix that issue as part of the renovation of this building. The benefits is this building, if it's a public safety facility, we'd be able to leverage some grants from the state for the seismic. Right now, we can't get those grants because there's not enough of this building is used for that purpose. But if 95% of the building is used for public safety, then I would even argue this one for public safety, so 100%. And then you have a problem if you want to access that grant, which is bigger than
Any further discussion on this topic?
anything else you guys want to have back there.
Okay, any objection to moving on to the next item on the agenda? Okay, hearing no objection. This would be Chief Dickerson, interim Chief
So we'll
Dickerson.
invite Chief Dickerson to come up and talk about the community risk and reduction plan.
Provided, I provided y'all with the staff report. And my best recommendation on that is we're working on the plan. I think that when we do a community risk reduction plan, we can aim for low hanging fruit, or we can really do a data drive and find out what our real issues are. And I think that if we do that data drive, we can have a more successful and better rounded plan. It does take more time to do that data drive and possibly some additional resources. It's nice that we have some additional staff. Division Chief Welch, I've actually included that into her job description now so that she can focus on that as well as her CSO stuff, and be on the engine less and be focused more on this. In that staff report, I did mention that before we did have a community risk reduction plan, but it was basically focused on the Cascadia events and major flooding, which I think are important to consider, but that's more of a disaster plan than it is a community risk reduction. When Cascadia happens, it will be over. So as we look at that, I hope to have a plan, a draft plan for around June 15th. That's been the deadline that I've given April, and that's to do the deep data dive. We're partnering with Polk County Number 1, Oregon State Fire Marshal, and a couple of the other groups in the area to do that. We understand that it may not be as quick as you guys like, but I would like to hand in something that is far more in depth and attainable, and that will actually make the citizens here able to thrive and work in happiness.
Questions? Kim, question? Well, no. Can you talk a little bit, please, about the difference between a disaster plan and a coordinated community risk reduction plan?
Thank you.
Absolutely. A disaster plan is basically all heck is broken loose. Buildings are falling. We have sweeping wildfire taking half the town. People can't flush the toilets or brush their teeth. Like it's bad. That is a disaster plan. That is multiple days of operations. That's bringing in the National Guard, things like that. A community risk reduction plan is when we look at what our citizens are actually having to call 911 for, things that are actually changing their lives. So slips, trips, falls, heating, problem with heating elements, problems with cooking, things like that. If you look around the nation, some of the same things pop up, but every community has their own things. With the age of our population and our construction, and it's such a varied, just saying that having a simple solution for one thing doesn't fit everything. So by having a actual drilled down data, we can say at this age group, we need to target slips, trips, and falls and cardiac health. And we can actually tailor a public safety for that and a public education as where, okay, this age group, the 25 to 35-year-olds are having garage fires because of this. That's what a coordinated community risk actually looks like.
Maybe talk about the 5 E's of community risk reduction.
I can't.
I have them written down if you don't remember them.
I can't pull them right off the top of my
I didn't
head
think
right now.
Yeah.
I did like a 2-week class in community risk reduction, got a piece of paper.
Yeah, I know.
That'll be my focus.
Yeah. So it's education, which is the cheapest way to go, right? Because if we can educate. Engineering, enforcement, emergency response, and economic incentives or disincentives, which we don't want to do.
Correct. And I would really like to focus on education. When it comes to enforcement, that includes having, different entities involved, and we're more than happy to partner with the police and tell people they can't do things. But I would much rather tell people what they should do to prevent getting hurt.
I would like to see, when we're thinking about the community risk reduction plan, that we're thinking about absolutely education, including making sure we have adequate signage, and I can send you this in an email so you don't have to quickly take notes. Adequate signage, making sure that we're doing community specific targeted community education, including social media, which we have a new social media guru. And I would also like to see some way, shape, or form how our community risk reduction plan takes into account our school liaison officer, because that's a huge piece of that community education piece, starting with our kids. And how you guys decide to do that, I don't know, but I'd like to see that. When it comes to engineering, education around fire sprinklers, alarm systems, including smoke alarms and CO2 alarms, everybody's favorite, speed bumps and speed humps, and lighting of crosswalks. That's part of the engineering stuff. And is the goal to have the coordinated community risk reduction plan include code enforcement somehow?
There would be some code enforcement in place on that. We're working towards having some more code enforcement with fire services,
Yeah.
Especially with access and things like that. But as we look at it, there could be some enforcement, and code services would be included in that.
Awesome. And then when it comes to emergency response, you've already kind of covered that. Like, what are you calling 911 for, and doing that deep data dive? which is fabulous. And then, Brian, what could our coordinated community risk reduction plan do as far as economic incentives?
So I think, when you're looking at, improvements in buildings, or you talked about, fire, smoke alarms and carbon dioxide
Mhm.
and stuff like that. We could, offer those at no cost to citizens, right? Say, hey, we want you to do this, and we have them, we make them available for that, right? So that's something that some cities have done. For commercial buildings with, fire sprinklers, we're already educating, people as they come in, development projects, for development process. And so on the education standpoint of that, we tell them, hey, this is required, here's how you can make it so that it's not required if you do this, like a little bit of new buildings. Because those fire sprinklers are often required certain size of buildings and different activities that you're doing in the building, probably that's classified. So, from the regulatory standpoint, we're making sure that those fire sprinklers and suppression systems are already in place in the new construction that we see. In existing buildings, retrofitting that in is not easy or inexpensive. And so I think there's opportunity for some economic incentive that way. When a building is going through a renovation, the city may say, hey, we will provide, X number of dollars for you to, make that improvement. So, and the good news is we have, at least in some areas of our city, we have funding to be able to do that. So I would say for the urban renewal areas, like the downtown buildings, which are probably some greater risk than other buildings in the city, we have grant programs that if someone wasn't within a suppression system, they could apply that grant funding and get awarded that way. So I think on the economic development side, we already have pieces in play to be able to do that. It just needs to be incorporated into the actual plan and say, hey, do you have these opportunities? Some of those I work hard work.
And then as far as economic incentives, what is the incentive for the city of Dallas to invest the time, which is money, and money, which is money, into making this happen?
As far as those, like, what's our purpose of providing that economic incentive?
Well, no, but like, does the city of Dallas get anything for saying, look, we have this plan, it's up to date and it meets fire code, national fire code?
So, for the property owners, there's, reduced insurance premiums, right, that people have to pay. If they own a large old building, I assume they have cheaper fire insurance rates if they have a suppression system that they don't. So there's benefits to our community financially that way. I don't think there's any financial benefits to the city. What is it?
Well, through education, just Sioux Falls.
Sure.
Training in fires for 30-year-olds, a lot of them don't know they shouldn't do lithium batteries plugged in for extended periods of time. Less fire calls, less ambulance calls, larger capacity. So that's probably our biggest.
Yeah, and less claims to the city for people that are, to talk about, areas of purpose, sidewalks, making sure that our sidewalk program is being implemented as part of that community risk reduction plan. You're not having people trip the ball, on sidewalks and violent against the city.
But it doesn't make us any more, it doesn't put us at a higher advantage to get grants or any of that kind of stuff?
Not necessarily. If we can show like the programs such as Firewise, where we come in and actually the fire department cannot be in charge of it, we can help sponsor it. But if a community has like a significant wildland urban interface, which we do not have a significant, we have a slight one, there is some grant opportunities for that. The only other opportunity I could really see is if we were to lower our ISO rate. And our ISO is a 3 currently, and that's pretty darn good. Jumping up to that 2 is going to take a major staffing lift. And when I say a major staffing lift, I mean a quite extensive staffing lift, one that I couldn't even in good conscience justify or even recommend.
Okay, so but our ISO, can you explain what an ISO rating is?
Insurance Services Offices comes in and rates you on 5 different things. Your water system, I have no control over that, but I trust Gary to have my back on that. Our dispatching system, which is West Valley Communications Center, and they're rated pretty high. Our training program, our staffing protocol, and our response profile. For a combination department to be a number 3, we are one of the highest in the western states and closely becoming one of the highest in the Midwest and western states. 3 is very hard to obtain, and I do all I can to hold that. What that results in is lower insurance rates for people that buy insurance, as well as, when we get looked at for grants to say, what are you doing to maintain this? And it keeps our ISO.
Yeah, but so having a coordinated community risk reduction plan isn't going to move us up to, it's not going to move us up.
Not even close.
Okay.
And I think that, by having a community risk reduction plan in place and actively working from that plan, it will help us to identify areas where we should be applying for grants.
No.
We can say, hey, this grant project is necessary and it's identified in our community risk reduction plan. Granting agencies love to see that because they're like, oh, the city's being thoughtful and they're just not throwing spaghetti on the wall to see what sticks. They're intentional about what they're doing. So having that, I think there's benefit in the granting world to say, this is part of a plan. A lot of grants will ask you, is this project in a plan? We could say, yes, it's in a couple of plans, right? If it's a street project, that might be in the TSP and a community risk reduction plan. Or if it's a fire or police project or whatever the case may be, go to that plan and say, yeah, it's in our plan, here's what we thought about, here's what we're gonna do. So there's benefits that way as well.
Excellent. Thank you. Any further discussion on the topic of our coordinated community risk reduction plan? Okay, so seeing no objection, can we move to the next item?
Yeah, and I'll invite Gary Marks, our full director, to talk about traffic safety.
Hello again. So, traffic safety team is an internal working group made up of the city manager, chief of police, myself, and our engineering supervisor, Tom Gilson. Our mission, our purpose, is to address complaints and concerns that we receive from the public concerning traffic safety, as well as issues that are identified internally by staff that bear on traffic safety. So by and large, most of the issues that come our way are speed related. Folks who feel that people are speeding usually on their own residential street. So we also get requests for crosswalks. We get requests for stop signs. And really that's most of what we get. So when we get a speed complaint or concern, Tom mounts our little speed counter machine on said street. We leave it out for a week. We collect data on the speeds people are actually going. Then we get that data back and our team reviews that and we make determinations if there really is a speed issue, and if so, what do we do about it? Anybody in the community can call the city, email the city, lodge a complaint on our website. The internal staff pretty well knows that when you get complaints related to traffic safety, they basically come to me and I kind of coordinate that and then pull the other members of the team together to address issues as we get an agenda that's, has some issues that we need to get addressed. So in the staff report, I listed off some of the things that have resulted, some of the improvements that have resulted because of our efforts. And yeah, it's really kind of the top and bottom of traffic safety team. Any questions?
Can you talk a little bit about lighted sidewalks? Some neighborhoods have them and some do not.
About what?
Lit sidewalks. So there are some neighborhoods have
Street lights.
street lights. Thank you. This is not sign language for street lights. Good. On crosswalks, and other neighborhoods do not. And how are those decisions made?
Well, since our team has been in operation for, I think it's about almost 2 years now, we've been doing it. I don't recall that we've received that concern. If we did, we would review that. It may be a matter of working with the power company and, we determined we needed to put a light in. I think we certainly could put that together and make that happen.
Okay.
But at least to date, since we've been in existence, that hasn't come our way.
Yeah, and I would add that typically streetlights are installed at the time of subdivision approval. So when lands have been subdivided, the consideration for streetlights are done at that time, because that's when you want to make sure you have the conduit and the other stuff, laid out to be able to provide the power to those lights and the infrastructure installed. So in some of our older neighborhoods, that where those weren't installed for whatever reason, going in now and installing them, there's additional cost to that, but it is working with the power company and Pacific Power to come out and kind of study that area and say, okay, here's what we can do to make that a reality.
In those older neighborhoods, it would likely be an overhead situation where the power lines are on poles. And that can happen, but yeah.
But the first step is for the neighborhood to just bring it to the city's
Yep.
attention, and that at this point in time has not been done.
That's right.
But they came through before the transportation safety team, and it was through the police department, and community outreach, and I put in two through them.
Oh, thank you for telling me that.
And I would just add a little bit to what Gary said. It's been a really good program, and this was born out of Gary's. This is Gary's brainchild to have it here in the city. And I think it's been very well received, and we've been able to address a lot of concerns. The traffic studies in particular, there's an education component to that. So if you go to the City of Dallas's website in the Public Works Department, under the engineering division, there's the Neighborhood Traffic Studies webpage. So you can go to that, and we actually publish whenever we do a traffic study. The report that's generated, they look really nice. It has like a dashboard look, so you can see, what's the average speed, what was the top speed, what was the slowest speed, how many vehicles went by, on a day. And so it's really user friendly. And we have, right now, the three most recent traffic studies we did. One was on Southeast Appleseed Drive and at Cortland Avenue. We did that in August of this last year. Southeast Miller Avenue, the 1800 block, we did that from June into July of this last year. And Southwest Brattleboro Drive going downhill at Crestwood, we did that in January, February of last year. So you can go on there and see those traffic studies. And so when someone calls and complains and says, hey, every person goes 40 miles per hour down my 25, we were able to share this study with them and say, here's the results. Everyone going down, your street is going 27, not 40. And that they're usually like, oh, yeah, you're probably right. It's just, there's one vehicle. And then we say, well, let the police department know, and they can try to catch that one person. So
we're soon going to be posting another 3 or 4 more studies.
Yeah. I got 4 more to go on it.
Yeah, so
Speed.
there's going to be more on the
yeah,
website.
the speed
soon.
studies.
Michael?
The way we're capturing the speeds is with the speed, the one that has the posted speed on it?
No, it's not the speed trailer. It's a device that we're able to,
More incognito.
right. It's a lot more incognito. We put it on,
It's true.
yes,
Yeah,
it's
no longer
true
the
speed.
tubes that go across the street.
It's not
We
the,
don't do that
it's not the
anymore.
tubes. It's a box that we're able to install like on a lamp post or a pole. And yeah, it captures people going the speed that they go. And yeah,
Without the
it's-
warning of.
without the warning. Now there's no flashing lights. There's nothing like that. It calculates how fast they're going, when they're going by, their speed. So
Typically, people are going slower than the neighbors think they are.
that's what we've been finding.
Except on my street.
Right. You
Sure.
complain, and you too can have a traffic study on the website.
Anything else, Gary? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any other concerns about moving forward from this topic? Okay, moving along.
All right. So our next one is just a briefing from our fire and police chief. So I'll invite Tom Simpson to come up and give a topic to the committee on the departments. There's a variety of topics here. So
Got that briefly on our complaint process. So, how it works. And what I'll do, I'm gonna touch on it just a real quick overview in general. So I'll give you a few specifics, and this is the form that's available. So when we receive a complaint, it's often by telephone or email. And one thing that's important to know is when complaints come into the police department, I generally stay away from them because I need to stay removed from them. The because of my role in the process. So if a complaint comes in, somebody wants to share concern about any particular person, generally Deputy Chief Mott takes that information, and depending on whether it's on an officer or a sergeant, whomever the supervisor is, they get assigned to look into it. I would say the vast majority of our complaints are just confusion about processes and procedures. And I'd say probably 90% of them or more are that. And a phone call generally takes care of it. Every now and then there's a complaint about something. But our supervisors, first line supervisors, sergeants, my administrative services manager, Tammy Welty, and Deputy Chief Mott, they can, if they conduct an investigation into some type of complaint, they can impose discipline up to and including suspension. Anything beyond that, whether it's termination, demotion, that needs to go through me for final approval. We've got a pretty comprehensive policy. It's about 15 pages long. That covers a lot of what's required of us by state law. But just to give you some general overviews here, I'll hit on some highlights. All of this is included in our policy in one form or the other. Our department will accept and address all complaints of any misconduct, and they're handled according to our collective bargaining agreement and state law. Our policy in the department is to ensure that the community can report any misconduct without any concern or retaliation or reprisal. Our policy is also intended to protect those department members who may be falsely accused. Somebody makes a false complaint about an officer, that's at a level to protect them. All of our personnel complaints are tracked on a log. We keep those on a log, and that log is purged along with the complaint file or the state archive. I think most of them are purged after 3 years, unless there's a termination involved that we go for 2 years. The general complaint policy applies to situations other than any routine direction, counseling, guidance, instruction, or verbal admonishments that a supervisor may do just by virtue of being a supervisor. Any complaints which are criminal will be investigated criminally first, and then, if appropriate, an administrative investigation after that. What is a personnel complaint? An allegation of misconduct or improper job performance against a department member that, if true, would constitute a violation of department policy and procedure, federal, state, or local law. What a personnel complaint is not is an allegation which, if true, would not violate any of those things. In other words, there may be something that just an interpretation and went wrong, but they really didn't violate any rules and regulations. We've got 4 classifications of complaints that we have: incomplete complaint, informal complaint, formal, and internal affairs investigation. An incomplete basically is if we get an anonymous complaint that just has no merit to it. We look at those to the cases really that goes with it. We look at it to see what it is first, just to make sure if it's something serious that we would dig into that, try to find out where it came from. If there's a complaint where the complainant refuses to cooperate, won't give us all the information, doesn't want to talk to us about it. And third-party complaint, people typically think third-party complaint. Only say, hey, my neighbor is upset at you because of this, and the neighbor needs to get that. An informal inquiry is basically one that's normally resolved by counseling by a supervisor. In other words, if it's a minor violation that we need to fix and counseling to take care of it, that's an informal inquiry. More formal is something that we think should, if it was true, if it was sustained, it would be something that could lead to counseling or maybe more like a letter of reprimand or and then if an investigation or complaint looks like it could likely lead to suspension, termination, demotion, and impeachment. Any of our supervisors can initiate through a formal inquiry, but only myself and negotiating internal affairs. The information comes to me in general form with a lot of details, and then I will go ahead and have that type of investigation started. And again, I stay out of it because I've got to be clear for the approval process. The dispositions of the investigations were unfounded, which means it didn't occur the way it was reported. Or it may be something that occurred that didn't involve one of our department members. Exonerated means that whatever their alleged occurred, that it was appropriate, it wasn't inappropriate at all. Not sustained means that there's insufficient evidence to prove that a violation occurred, but not enough that we could conclude clear. The sustained is simply that it's sufficient evidence exists to establish that a violation occurred. Incomplete is one that we use periodically when the investigation is just not continued for whatever reasons. Most common is if an internal investigation starts and the employee decides I'm going to just resign. We have no reason to further our internal investigation. That doesn't mean if there's a criminal investigation tied to it, that still continues. If there's any sanctions to be done by UPSST, that continues to go. Matter of fact, when someone resigns, there's a specific question that I have to answer to report that presentation to UPSST, whether or not there was any investigation or part of the investigation that was going on their record. And this is just to avoid people bailing out and never getting their certification on this. I mean, the other piece there, the last one, was a policy issue, where there's something that goes on, causes a citizen to complain about it, and we look into it, and it's just a matter that we have a policy that needs to be tweaked to make more sense. Maybe it wasn't necessarily something the officer did wrong, but they were wrong policy, that they're going to do it, and we deal with that to see the revision of policy. So that's more kind of an overview of that there. Let's see. We report annually to the state if we have any bias complaints. We track those accordingly. We had one this past year, and it was an interesting one, but the gentleman sent us an email in August of 22, and he was concerned that he noticed one of our officers pulled over someone that had a person of color in their car, and his email to us was that he thought that we should be careful and not do that, but if we pull over a car that happens to have a person of color into it, we could be problem. Just a way to start over. It's not really that has nothing to do with it, and people have to stay up with it. So other than that, we haven't had it. This form we have an hour door just outside the police department. We have it also up in the city management office. Folks can fill this out and mail it in if they want to initiate something that way as well. And sometimes we get them on our website or our report. That's really cool. Senator, questions?
So that was mostly if a citizen had, can I talk?
Yes, Carrie.
If a citizen had a complaint against an officer, what if they just have a general complaint? I mean, is it just like, I don't know, like a suspicious person or a something?
And if they just want to take over the warrant, then I'll serve them out of it.
Okay.
Thank you, Tom. I appreciate all of this information. Very important stuff. Any further discussion on this topic? All right. Is there any reason why we can't move on to interim chief Dickerson?
I think we're good. We can keep some back up and talk about
Okay. fire stop, fire suppression devices. Okey dokey. So, I know that Chief Brumfield had been working on this before he started. And as we looked at it and started to dive a little deeper into it, because I had some questions, as we started to look at it. Staff at the fire department feels that a controlled focus group and partnership would be much easier to begin and have a better result than installing it in a private home. We're looking to probably maybe partner with Polk County Housing Authority and Polk County Community Development to look at the cans to actually install. The units have a range now from $60 to $120 to buy and install. They have a 6-year shelf life, so we would have to track that. The big thing that flagged me was they recalled 90% of the units in 2016, 2018, and 2019 due to unreliability of the equipment. So if someone kind of had a false sense of security and that thing not firing or not working, I have a concern about the liability back to the fire department who wants to install them and or some of the residents depending on those. Oregon State Fire Marshal does not currently recognize those devices in their fire prevention program. They are currently not UL approved, and as I look at installation, some of them are very easy to install. They have a magnetic hood, you magnet it up, hangs there. Staff feels more investigation and research should be conducted before we implement anything with the fire stop cans, and that perhaps a better effort would go to a smoke alarm installation and concentrating on an area that is more high risk with elderly and retirement communities. We can partner with the Red Cross and other community-based organizations. And if we look at where the stop cans have been effective, it is more in college dorm apartment complex. It's not trailer house. So at this time, I would recommend that there's a fire community to not go forward with the 573 plan with the stop can for the simple fact that they're on the lab and or we have no control on what people are out and we have no control over it.
You said you're thinking about developing a partnership with Polk County Housing Authority and whom?
Polk County Community Development.
Oh, of course. Kim?
What is a fire stop can? How is that different from a fire extinguisher?
It is this. This cool little doodad gets installed above the stove.
Okay.
For a small stove, it's a single, and for anything larger than 33 inches, every stove will have it's 2 above each side of the burners. And if they have sustained flames for more than a couple seconds, this actually dumps a fire retardant that actually saponifies any of the oils and chemicals and puts out all the fire on top of this.
Automatically? Or do you have to deploy?
Nope, it does it all on its own. It's got a really cool fusible link. It actually has like a small candle wick. So when it kind of gets lit
And so we're talking about this because you were thinking someone wants them like put into homes?
Correct.
Like new homes or as a retrofit into all homes or?
It was originally designed for residents at 576.
So a year and a half ago, Chief Brumfield was talking about a concerted effort in a specific neighborhood where the thought was that these could reduce kitchen fires in a specific neighborhood that we were seeing a lot of kitchen fires. And then Chief Brumfield retired. And so I asked if we could get an update on what's going on, and we didn't get an update. We got a full chemistry lesson. So I'm glad that we're looking into this to make sure that when we do a coordinated effort, that we are not only looking at good ideas, but things that are actually going to reliably work.
And I will say that in the 3 years that I lived in Dallas, we've seen 3 cooking fires, two of which were in very, very new homes, which would not be targeted by this. The other one wasn't. We have more of an issue with heating elements and
It could all be part of the coordinated community risk reduction plan.
Do they know why there was so many fires or an odd amount of fires in this area? I mean, well, whatever spurred this at the,
I think it was 2 or 3 that were within a year, and it was the cooking elements of the housekeeping of the structure.
were they rentals? Do we know?
One was rental, two were private, in this area, 2 were privately owned. They were pre-1984 single wide bedrooms.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you.
Very hard to fight fire.
Sure.
Anything else on this subject? Any other questions? Okay, I think that gets us through our entire agenda. I had originally hoped that we could, as a new committee, come up with what are your ideas for the upcoming year. I'd like to kind of pause that until we have more than 3 people here. Then maybe we could talk about it next meeting.
Sounds good. Yeah, and that was the item H was just comments from the chair. It was just kind of facilitating that discussion. So if you want us to just have that item on for the next meeting in April, we can do that.
Ideally, what I'd like to hear from the entire committee, you guys can listen now, but is what do you want to accomplish on this committee? We're here for a year together. What are your goals? You heard mine because I put them on the agenda, but I think it's important for you guys to be able to say, I think this is an important part of community safety, and this is what I want to see on the public safety committee.
Okay.
Yeah. So and we'll when we have the April agenda, we'll make sure that the council members that serve on this committee will know, hey, come to the meeting with your ideas on what you want to do. So we'll convey that to both David and so the 2 of you know. Come to April with those ideas. We'll talk to David, and if you have a new counselor that's appointed to this committee by then, we'll let them know as well.
Okay, so that gets us through our agenda. So can I move to adjourn the meeting?
You can just adjourn
Finish
it.
the agenda, business is done.
All right, business is done. I declare the meeting adjourned at 5:35 p.m.